Good evening and welcome to episode 11 of Reading Between the Lineups, the show that gets to the person behind the Discord persona. Tonight, I'm your host, DRC, and we have got a great show for you tonight. My guest tonight is Doc. Not Doc Fury, just Doc. We'll get into that in just a moment. Once we start the interview itself. Doc is the perfect team manager of the Detroit Fury. He's also got a couple alt teams out there that you've seen floating around. Some of those would be the Tigers theme team, and then the Nerf team that he's got floating around. So maybe you've bumped into one of those. He's a known tourney savant. This man wins tourneys of all disciplines, and we dig into that some on the interview. That was one of the things that I was most interested in learning how to do, as I struggle with one tournament competency in bronze and have middling results. He was also an early game cycle PEL mainstay. So Doc and MacJax were a couple guys basically living and taking up permanent residence in the Perfect League for the first 10, 15, 20 weeks that the Perfect League existed. He's also a member of the DLL and an all-around great guy. In addition to interviewing Doc, we also are giving away 30,000 perfect points tonight. And thanks to Chuck for gifting a sub to Maxfire. Appreciate it, man. And then Luke subscribing with his Amazon account. Thanks a ton, man. Wait till next year giving Doc some business in the chat here. But before we get into that, let's get to hit and run. And so my hit and run topic for tonight is Triple D. And no, I'm not talking about diners, drive-ins, and dives here. I'm talking about DRC's Discord do-over. So on our last show, which you see here in the bottom right of your screen, there's my shiny bald head, and then Kidney's looking entirely disinterested. We debuted a new concept, a new offering. Called it Tinker Every Chance. And what it was a premium Discord channel, optional Discord channel that people could pay into if they desired more of that like white glove approach to Perfect Team. Someone who needs help and wanted to get it because they hadn't found it in some other way. And when I dreamed up the concept for this Discord channel, my vision for it was to be that of a community builder. It was targeted towards the people that hadn't found a way to join the ranks with a private Discord group like the DLL or the BFF or TBD. And they had not already traversed the tough journey of learning and relearning the nuances of this very difficult game. I mean, as you talk to anyone, and if you ask them, hey, explain how this game works. How do you get good at this game? Like, where would you even start? And so the spirit of this Discord channel was helping people with where would you start? Helping people go from a micro perspective and break down how to get good at this game. What does a good card look like? Why is exporting data a valuable asset for you? How do you understand which players fit what types of ballparks? How do you even change your ballpark? And why would you want to? So that types of things. The vision was to remove the barrier to entry to high-level gameplay and really cut through that very difficult learning curve for those that needed it and were actively seeking and wanting that support. With the end goal being a larger family of active high-level players, which in turn ends up growing the community. Now, in practice, and in practice, the Discord channel itself, and in many ways, my announcement of that Discord channel did not fulfill the vision of being a community builder, but rather was a community divider for some. Some people had quite a visceral reaction to the concept of a third-party private Discord channel run by someone broadcasting Perfect League on Sundays on the Out of the Park Twitch channel. And I've had the opportunity to listen to those folks, to really dig in, understand where their concerns were coming from, understand where the angst was rooted in, and understand why they felt that way. And I'm honestly very appreciative because they were so passionate. They were so forthcoming with their rationale and with where they were coming from. And now I've organically gone from being a noob out of the park player to being an active and probably somewhat annoying Discord member to being the bald guy that you see 3 times a week on this channel here. And this incredible community, you guys have been at the center of all of it. And I consider the community itself to be Perfect Team's greatest asset. I think for a lot of people playing right now, for a lot of people still actively checking on their team daily, maybe even sim to sim, I think that so many of them are still into this because of the community, because of the people that you're playing this game with. And so to me, the community is really the sacred cow that serves Perfect Team and serves to keep everyone engaged. And it was honestly very difficult for me knowing that there were members within the Perfect Team community that were really taken aback, that were really almost insulted at the concept and the idea of this offering being out there in existence. And that was tough. And so after collecting a lot of feedback from those folks, from some people indirectly, I decided to rethink the Discord channel from the ground up. Now, while I still believe in the core vision, I still believe that there are people out there that seek, want, and need this type of service. I don't want to serve as a community divider. I don't want to be a negative force for some, to be out there as that community divider. I want to be a community builder. And so we're reshaping the Discord itself. So the reimagined channel is going to shift from that of a white glove service where it's, come to me and we will take a collaborative team here and help you build a lineup, help you build a team, help you understand this, help you understand that, to more of an extension of the Twitch channel itself. So you want somewhere to present an idea for a segment at the end of This Week in Perfect Team, boom, we've got a channel for that. If you want somewhere to suggest a topic to cover here and hit and run before an interview, we're going to have room for that too. If you just want to talk about the game, we're going to have room for that too. So it's going to be an extension of and another community, a broad community dwelling for the people that play Perfect Team. And we can have that be slightly nuanced differently than the Out of the Park Discord itself. And it's going to be available to anyone that's interested. And I can even link it in the chat right now with a very simple command. So anyone can hop on in right now. So for the non-subscriber, there's going to be a couple channels there for you. One of them is going to be the Daily Deep Dive channel, which is where I'm going to be taking on a particular topic that I find interesting, kind of like a little micro blog post, if you will, of breaking down something and encouraging channel dialogue to jump into that. And for subscribers of the channel, there'll be even more channels there, including channels to talk about tourney stuff, data stuff. We've even got a kidneys channel in there where you can check in on him. He's talking about playing Madden earlier today. But I think it should be a good time. And I think that this re-envisioned, redeployed concept here should take away some of that negative stigma and serve its core purpose. Get back to being a community builder and not a divider. So, what's it going to look like? As I mentioned, everyone's going to be welcome. We'll have that daily deep dive there and encourage and foster discussion about different topics each day. It's going to serve as an extension of each of these shows. And I see Kidney saying the link's timed out. I'll get a new one here in a second. And then there's going to be some additional channels there. So we're going to have some voice channels there for people that want to just chat, for people that want to chat during the shows. I'm even going to welcome fantasy sports in there. It's no secret to anyone that's watched me over these many weeks here that I love fantasy sports, especially Dynasty Fantasy. And so if there's a crossover population there, I know guys like Walnut and Jedi And they share that same affliction that I do, and there's going to be some room for that in there. So hopefully you guys will join me. I know many of you are subscribers, whether through Amazon Prime, through being gifted a subscription or otherwise, but I welcome you all and hope that we can have a good time in there and hope that it is an asset to the community. So let me load up this next slide while I get a fresh link here that will actually work. Of course, the boomer can't get a link in the channel that actually sticks there. That one should work. All right, so broadcast schedule, as you guys know, on Thursdays we go on after Chris, and we do This Week in Perfect Team. Looking forward to this week. I know that the schedule got mixed up, so we've got a new content set coming at us. Excited to break that down for you guys. One of the recent additions that we have on that channel is Kidneys has put the expected triple slash line in Perfect League in there, which is adding even more context and value to the show itself. So be sure you don't miss that. On Sundays, I broadcast the Perfect League World Series, and I do so on the Out of the Park Twitch channel. We have a good time there. We break down the matchups. We've had some really great World Series to broadcast. Recently, we had API take down Pidge this last Sunday, which was definitely a very good World Series, as the first 4 games of it all were settled by 1 run. So lots of high drama, high leverage. And then on Tuesday, we've got this show. And tonight we've got Doc. Next week's guest will be announced at the end of the stream. And then last thing before we move forward here, new logo. So check out the bottom right. Got a new logo for you. That's going to serve as a logo for the Discord channel, as well as my Discord icon itself. Now, Walnut beat me in DLL last week, which is why I was flying the Cubs L flag for the past 7 days. But that bet has worn off, and I get back to a logo of choice here. And so this is what you'll see on the Discord. We'll get rid of that Cubs logo there for the time being, at least until I lose another bet. All right, so let me see what I missed in the chat. I didn't want to look away while I was coming from the heart there and talking about the Slack channel. Looks like Crash SF Giants threw in some bits there. Thanks so much, man, as well as subscribing. Really appreciate it. And Chuck's throwing some love in there too. You guys are the best. You guys are the best. All right, let's get to the interview. Let's get to Doc, and we'll go from there. So first, let me make myself disappear. That's always my favorite trick. Boom.
Started doing, I played the base game for maybe a month or so, and then
joining me tonight for Reading Between the Lineups is Doc Fury. How you doing tonight, Doc?
Good. Thanks for having me. I think it's hilarious when people like link your name, or at least your nickname, to your team name. To me, it sounds ridiculously stupid every time I hear Doc Fury.
Yeah, I think that in our heads, we all connect our handles and our team names differently. So, first, DRC is something that I've literally never gone by in my whole life. So now that I've got a whole bunch of people calling me DRC, that's weird enough as it is. And then being called DRC Nomads definitely makes it even weirder, because okay, I'll be DRC for you, but being DRC Nomads, that doesn't make a ton of sense. And I guess the same can be said for you, Mr. Doc Fury.
Yeah, I got the nickname because my last name is Holiday, and so it was a lazy nickname in college. When I went to a recruiting trip, they said, if you come to the school, we're going to call you Doc, and I was like, yeah, whatever. And when I went there, of course, they did, and it got to the point where I was living in a house for 2 years, and probably 8 of the 9 other guys that I lived with didn't even know my real name, which was just obnoxious. But it made a good opportunity for me to introduce myself to girls as Nick at parties, and then they could later find out that they were could be dancing or talking to Doc instead. But I always feel even silly using Doc, because I feel like it's a little pretentious. But that when I joined the Discord or whatever, they asked for a name, and again, naive to Discord and everything, I just used Nick. And then, of course, there was a mod that was named Nick, and shortly after I joined, and I was getting just tons of DMs of folks complaining about things and asking for help. And I'm like, I'm not that guy. And so finally I changed it to Doc. But yeah, it's strange. Again, maybe next year I'll go back to Nick. That seems a little bit more natural.
Well, for the purposes of this show, the Doc is in. And why don't you tell us a little bit about that Doc? Who are you? How do you come to this game? What's your background? Take it any direction you want.
Middle-aged guy, just like most of the folks that play this game. Don't have any kids or anything like that. So when we were locked up at home, definitely was bored and trying to find a good use of my time. I work for a really, really large company as a business consultant. And most of the time, when we're not in COVID world, I travel a lot and sit down with businesses. In fact, that's kind of even my passion. So in my spare time, I work with even local businesses just as a pro bono and try and help them on the sales and process and marketing side of things to help them be better. But I do that on a large scale with my normal day-to-day job. And when I couldn't travel and was trying to leave my wife alone so that she wouldn't divorce me, I tried to find some things to do. And I never was a gamer. I always had game systems growing up because most kids did have like a Nintendo or an Atari or something like that. But the things that were always attractive to me, just like what I do in my day-to-day job, is kind of dissecting and more, like simulation type of stuff. And so, I just did a quick search for this game and or for a simulation type sports game, and it showed up in Google, and I clicked on it and started doing it. I played the base game for maybe a month or so, and then finally said, what's this thing on the right, and clicked on this thing on the right and joined and opened some packs, and somehow ended up on Discord. I'd never been on Discord before in my entire life, didn't even know what Discord was. Same thing with Twitch, never even heard of that before until this game. But just started chatting. And again, I was trying to get away from like the big social media sites because things were just so negative, so trying to get away from the Facebooks and Instagram, the Twitters of the world. And so Discord was kind of that opportunity to still chat with people, but not chat about serious stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Just joke around and BS. And thankfully there was a couple great folks like Jerry, some others that brought me into groups, and we were able to pick on each other and share goofy gifs and things like that, and just have a good time. And so that's really what this game has been all about, is just interacting with folks and being able to tease each other and get over competitive at times with people unnecessarily just to have an enemy or something like that, and something to strive for. It's been a good time. It's been a good use of dead time during this year.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people were looking for just that, looking for some sort of distraction, and sports and games often are an excellent avenue to find that. And I was interested to learn that really professional sports and sports have been something that you have a bit of a background in, from time with the Pistons to an arena football league. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background in sports?
Yeah, I will tell you, so I graduated from college, and even through college, I had an opportunity to work for some different sports teams. In fact, that's why my team is the Detroit Fury, because the first true job I ever had was kicking off that arena football team in Detroit. In fact, there was two brand new teams to arena football that year. The Fury, I think, maybe there was three, but I think there was three. I know there was two. And then your team, the Chicago Rush, which I don't know if they still exist. The Fury do not. But when they asked me to pick a team name, I'm like, well, they don't exist anymore. I'm going to steal their logo and use that, as my team. But yeah, I did start off my life in sports. It's usually sports and entertainment. It's usually very interesting to folks. I always say, it's a career that like people get excited to hear about, but you never really want to do because, you have to work games instead of watching games. Mm-hmm. You have to work concerts and nights and weekends, and most people are home and relaxing with family and things like that. And you're, walking around a stadium and things like that. So it's tougher once you're into it, and it doesn't pay as much, and it's much more competitive. It's not a positive environment, work environment that you would maybe think of until you get higher in your career. And so eventually I stepped away from it. But I definitely, in this game, this is why this game is fun for me. I've always been a numbers guy. And ironically, the first job I ever had was with the Philadelphia 76ers. I was lucky enough to be an intern for them during the strike year of '99. And it just coincidentally, that was the year analytics just started to flow through sports. And the Sixers were one of, I think, 5 or 7 teams in the NBA that got to test with IBM. IBM actually ran the program, testing using analytics and evaluating their players, as well as putting together scouting reports and stuff like that. And quite honestly, they kicked it to me, and that was my job. With the Sixers, I worked in basketball operation with the scouting team and the coaches and personnel and stuff like that. And they gave it to me because I think they thought it was stupid. So if you think back to like Moneyball, it was the same thing in the NBA, probably in all professional sports, where they just didn't see the value. And so I was running reports on a daily basis, looking at matchups. I was handing those reports out. I would say that sometimes, they were probably getting chucked right in the trash almost immediately. In fact, at first, I can tell you that a lot of people hated it because it pointed out like weaknesses of folks. And so I had an awesome team at the Sixers. It was like the best time to be there. There was a lot of guys that were assistant coaches at the time that eventually became head coaches in the NBA. There was just a lot of talent there. A couple folks that were in the front office that eventually became GMs. One of them became a GM of the Utah Jazz. Another guy took over and became GM of the Sixers. Billy King obviously became GM of the Nets, I think. But there was a lot of talent. Larry Brown was the head coach there. But the coolest person that I got to work with, and I'm a Detroiter, was Rick Mahorn. If you remember him,
yeah, for
he was
sure,
a bad boy, a bruiser, and it just coincidentally, mid-season they signed him to kind of be a mentor for the team. It was a really young team, kind of an immature team at the time. It was like that climax of when Allen Iverson was getting fined a ton for just a bunch of stupid stuff, right? And so they're trying to bring in some veterans to kind of calm everybody down, and they brought in Rick Mahorn. And so I actually knew Rick from family friends and things like that. In fact, like one of my friends ended up marrying his daughter, and Rick became my go-to for my scouting reports. And so I would give the report to Rick Mahorn, and he would literally rip out pages in the report before I would make copies. Because he would be like, this guy can't handle seeing that, Stephon Marbury, can't, will stop him when he tries to go left and stuff like that. And so they were preventing players from getting information because they felt like they weren't ready to see it yet, which is really crazy.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think that resistance to data, resistance to analytics is something that we've seen across all of the sports. And you see it chronicled within movies like Moneyball, and you hear anecdotes come out across just how it's sometimes, at least in players' perceptions, being weaponized against them. As a reason why they shouldn't get this or shouldn't get that, or a reason why they're not worthy of contract X. And so you can understand where those feelings are coming from. But at this point in time, I think across probably the NBA, and we know it's in Major League Baseball, and it certainly exists within Perfect Team, that grappling with understanding and accepting that data is a huge piece of the picture is something that we've all just come to terms with.
Yeah, I mean, 1999 doesn't seem that long ago, but that's what we're talking about that year. That was the year that Paul DePodesta, he I think left that year in '99, and that was when that movie was taking place. Moneyball was taking place. So it was all kind of happening in '99, and people just didn't see value across the board. They didn't know what to do with it. They were used to a bunch of scouts, and I have a lot of this stuff. If you're a big Sixers fan, or I've got like a great scouting report on Michael Olowokandi, who was the number one pick at the time. If you're a big Indiana Pacers fan, DM me and I'll send you some fun stuff. But yeah, they took more value in the scout and what they saw with their eyes than the data at the time. And everything was just, again, 20 years ago, things were so different. I can remember during game days, my job during game days were two things. At the beginning of the game, and then during halftime, my job was to help the video coordinator to make sure that we were recording all the games, which meant pressing record on a bunch of VCR tapes, right? and then throughout the game, my job was to go down to the press room and grab printouts of stats and run them all over the building to the press team, to the folks, the announcers and stuff like that, because we didn't have computers that were just pushing that data live.
Right.
It's crazy. It seems so simplistic, but that's what we had to do. And I remember there was one game where I actually got in trouble because I went to the press room during lunch, because everyone came during the to eat lunch in the press room, and I got into an argument with someone that's now really famous, which was a beat writer back then, which was Stephen A. Smith. And Stephen A. Smith and I sat and argued through like all of the third quarter over something stupid. It was like comparing the Sixers to another historical basketball team or something like that. And I got in trouble because I never went and got the sheets and ran the sheets to the right people, and so they didn't have to. And I don't think I had like a super responsible, like I wasn't going to the announcers or anything that game, but somebody complained.
But so who won the argument between you and Stephen A?
I don't think, well, pretty sure. So there was great beat writers. John Smallwood was a beat writer then. I don't know what he does anymore, but he was a super nice guy. And Stephen A was the beat writer for the other paper in town. And I'm sure he thought, he won, but I just remember him calling me Billy King's boy because I wouldn't answer straight to him or something like that, which to me was a compliment. It was like the first time I think I understood, that not giving an answer is a good answer. Because I was like, I'm not telling him what he wants to hear. But yeah, so it again, completely different time. Again, stats were just not looked at, like they are today. And I missed it. My dream was to be a general manager, run some sort of professional sports team. And that was probably my in. And I didn't even realize it was this whole statistical analysis stuff. Coincidentally, the guy that was running the same program I was Eric Spoelstra for the Miami Heat. So he was doing the same thing for them. And I think there's like 4 or 5 other people. I don't know who they were, but I know Spoelstra. That was his responsibility, because ultimately back then, that program was given to the video coordinator, and he was the video coordinator at the time. His dad was a phenomenal marketing guy, and got him the job with the Heat, and so he kind of lucked into that position. But I mean, he probably never should have been in the NBA. Just didn't have the experience to get the job. But he knew someone. His dad knew some folks, so hooked him up. But yeah, crazy.
Well, the good news is that you didn't lose out on that opportunity to be a GM for too long, because on comes Perfect Team, and here you are, a GM for not only a main league team, but for every tournament discipline you can dream of. So dreams do come true, people. Now, speaking to baseball, as we've been spending most of our time talking about basketball, are you a big baseball fan? What's your favorite team?
Yeah, I never played baseball as a kid, which is probably strange because it feels like everyone plays t-ball. When I was a little kid, I had really bad circulation issues. I legitimately, I'll tell you, like I was one of those kids that wore what we call twister cables, but you would remember them as like those metal, like braces that Forrest Gump wore in the movie, and ended up running and they broke. I had to wear those for like a year and wore special shoes. And the whole point of this is, I ended up becoming a swimmer. My mom put me in swim lessons, and because that was supposed to be the best thing for circulation and strength in legs and stuff like that. And since I entered at such an early age, like 5 years old, and started swimming, I just stuck with it. And so I became a pretty good swimmer. I actually swam on the junior national team, competed with the U.S. In Australia. Was like the first race, U.S. versus Australians in the Olympics. And so I was a swimmer. And although I loved other sports, I just never had the time. Like, they always just made me focus on swimming, even if it's incredibly boring sport. But, I liked other sports. I loved baseball. In fact, right now, probably my favorite sport is baseball. I watch a lot of baseball, even though the Tigers suck. I watch most games or listen to it in my car as I'm traveling and things like that. And so that's really the passion. I think I've told you, I think my sports career ended when I didn't get the job with the Tigers. I was trying to get a job in the marketing department because at that point I had given up like the GM dreams, and my best avenue was in marketing, and had done marketing for the Pistons and the NBA and stuff like that, and didn't get the job, and kind of washed my hands with it at that point. Decided I wanted to make more money and just have a normal life and meet a girl. But yeah, baseball is where it's at now, and I love the game. Again, to me it's like a sports version of like chess. It's not a perfect game by any means, but allows you to just kind of micromanage and do different things and keeps your mind active.
And that's absolutely what Perfect Team 21 is great at, keeping your mind active, giving you something to endeavor towards, whether that be team building goals, team accomplishment goals within the main league, winning a tournament, winning something there. So why don't you start by walking us through a bit of your Perfect Team 21 experience? What has your road been like? I think I teased it when I announced that you were going to be my guest tonight, that my first interaction with you was way back in March, as you were the quote unquote whale team that I was going to when I needed some live bronze cards to complete my live collections to keep moving on there. And whenever I pinged you as, I need a 67 on the Reds, you'd have them, and you'd be kind enough to post them at L7 instead of the price gouging that was going on at the time. So that was really my first introduction to you. But why don't you walk us through your Perfect Team 21 experience and really what you focused on, and in what order you went through it, and what that whole story's been like for you.
Yeah, this year feels like 6 years, so it's hard to even think back to that long ago. Again, I don't even know how I got into it. I clicked a button, and all of a sudden I was like hooked, like a drug. Mm-hmm. I think people want to win, and the easiest way is to throw money. And so I definitely threw some money early, and my team shot up really quick. And again, like I said earlier, I was looking for a way to get away from Facebook, but still have interaction and joke around with some guys and things like that. And Discord allowed that. And, Jerry and BRT and Love the Cubs and some of those folks early on, I think, they brought me into a group, and we were able to BS. I think, Jerry invited me to his group because I posted a GIF of the Golden Girls and Discord. And so he's like, yeah, this is the person, who can joke around. And so we had fun. Again, nobody takes any of this stuff too seriously. But yeah, like when you open 10,000 packs, probably open like 10,000 packs at the beginning, you just have so many duplicates of dumb stuff. And I think in life, just like in OOTP, there's folks that are, that like to help, and there's folks that are looking to take advantage of opportunities. And I'm sure folks probably bought a bunch of cheap cars from me at some point and flipped them for profit, because that's just the way the world works. But, I enjoyed helping people. I think, especially early on in COVID, it's like I make the experience bad for folks. So if it cost me a penny or two to give a good deal to somebody, I was absolutely going to do it to make them enjoy the game more. And so that was my focus early, when I had thousands and thousands and thousands of cards that I didn't know what to do with. And I really had no idea what I was doing. And again, those folks early on who, we still play with today, they helped me a lot in terms of learning the game. And because I was just like every other new person that was like, oh, I got 100, this must be awesome. And then you find out that 100 stinks, right?
Right.
It's like, no, this Rube Marquis, which I don't know if that's how you say the guy's name, but I think I sold that guy like 5 times. So I finally figured out that was like a really good card. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely paid a very early price because I had no idea what I was doing. And so people really helped me out. And so it's to this day, if I can help people answer questions and stuff like that. I'm all about doing that.
So you came to Perfect Team for an escape. You found it. You quickly found some private discords to jump into to really augment the fun by really making it about that community experience there. But what has really been the most fun for you within this game cycle? What have you derived the most satisfaction from accomplishing? Or is it really just lighter than that? It is really just about the, having an escape and having some people to BS with as you're killing time, waiting for the pandemic to end.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fun to win. I think anyone that says otherwise would be lying to you. I think the first time I won a big tournament, I won a Bobby Door, which is a horrible 100 to win. But I think I won the first one. Well, no, I won the second one, but none had been listed at the time. And somehow, like, the group that I was in helped me get way more than I should have got for that card. But I think that was exciting. Over time, you realize that this game is very much like baseball, and it's incredibly random. And no matter how much you plan and how much money you spend and how good your cards are, again, I was second person to buy Bartolo Colon. That card cost at the time a lot, and people were like, "This guy's stupid for paying this much money," which I am, absolutely. But that guy didn't help me win one thing. All these SCs are pretty bad at the end of the day, or at least aren't going to help you a whole lot. And so it took me a long time to realize that. And then I think once I realized that, the game became more fun because it was less about winning and more about just the community. I'm probably one of the more active folks chatting within the DLL. I really love the online league stuff. I'm in 4 online leagues, which is separate than Perfect Team, but I think is a total hidden gem within the game. It doesn't cost you anything unless you're running that league. But I think that's where it's more fun, is just to BS and tease each other. I mean, my favorite moments this year are just some of the jokes and some of the stupid stuff that I did or other people did, that we all got to laugh about, some of the experiences that we had, and just foolishness that occurred behind the scenes. The game itself now is, it's just a game. I think I'm at the tail end of really putting a lot of time into it, but I think for the last few months, the most enjoyment I have is just how to break the game. How to find those little areas that they didn't patch or they haven't fixed. And, like, I'll give away my secret now, like the dead ball game that, the tournament that they have every single week. I probably have won that freaking thing like 50 times, 100 times, so many times. I mean, I won it like 12 or 14 days in a row at one point, because like within that game, you can run 2 starting pitchers, basically have them pitch against like 3 or 4 or 5 pitchers or hitters, and they can pitch nearly every single day. And the game during that era will default to like a opener follower kind of situation, no matter what batter count you use. And so you can always have a righty versus a righty after like 3 or 4 batters in dead ball. So it's a huge advantage. And now there's some better teams that are in dead ball, and so I don't always luck into the win, and a few folks have figured out that cheat, but there's a lot of cheats in the tournament features still that you can kind of have fun kind of cracking. I've got a couple things I do with live and different things like that give you a little bit of an advantage, and I've had a good time trying to figure out, try and win all the different SEs, even though most of them stink. I've won almost all the golds. I think there's only like 2 or 3 golds I haven't won. Obviously, there's only like 5 silvers. I've got all the silvers, and there's a couple perfects I'm still missing. But I've had fun trying to get that. So that's the biggest challenge at this point for the game.
So I find that so interesting. You have been able to achieve high levels of success within all sorts of different tournament disciplines. And as a single discipline man myself, really trying to master bronze, which at this point is kind of a crapshoot of sorts, given how flat and understood the player pool is. although I'll caveat that with the recent card dump that happened has infused some nuance to it. But given that you've been able to have so much success across such a wide spectrum of tournament disciplines, how have you done so? Are you someone who's extracting down data and looking at it that way? Are you a regression model guy? How have you gone about doing this?
Wait till next year would say that I just steal everything, which is kind of true. I think I look at data nonstop for my day-to-day job. And so although I enjoy it, it's not something that I'm eager to spend the time that you put in. I can do those things, and I have done them occasionally for the game, but I'm not one that pulls data anymore. I did it maybe a little bit early on to get like an iron team or a bronze team going. But at this point, I'm fairly good at just observing the situation, looking at the winners over time, looking at some of the tricks and learning from other folks' tricks and applying them and testing those. And so that's pretty much what I've done. And I think, you've mentioned this, other folks have mentioned this in streams. The biggest factor to success is having a group of folks that you can talk through things with. Either hear them talk about it, weigh your opinion. I'm not, I don't care if people pass me and get my best practices and stuff like that. So I'm always happy to share stuff. And so that's what happens at DLL and some of the other private servers that I've been in. People will talk and say, hey, what are you doing here? Or I noticed this person's doing this. Has anyone tested this? And, I think you learn a lot from that. Like, how does this card play? You get the back and forth there. I'm not as aggressive trying to get the new cards as I was, but I just don't see the need for it. Mm-hmm. I'll probably continue to play this game for another year, and so I'll wait out for them to get a little bit cheaper. But it's kind of nice to see some of the data on Brooks Robinson and things like that from other folks. And when you have those relationships, they'll happily share that information. You don't have to necessarily pull the data yourself. You can just get a screenshot from the production that they're getting from mm-hmm. their card in Perfect League and things like that. And so I don't run it.
Yeah. So your ethos is much more about anecdotal, observed card play and card interaction from things like grabbing screen grabs or stuff like that, and then just spending more time and effort maybe discussing and investigating tactics through whether it's a discussion in a private Discord or observing someone doing something with their pitching rotation, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, at a certain point, like, you get halfway decent with this game, you know how the game works. You know what matters, what ratings matter, what don't, mm-hmm. where they should be in the lineup, things like that. So I know how to read the card. So I can eyeball if it's going to fit and how it's going to fit within the team that I'm building, and so that's a piece of it. And so like I'm doing some weird stuff with my silver team right now that a lot of people would, but I understand that, like, I'm going a little bit heavier offense in spite of defense, and sometimes it's going to work out for me and sometimes it's not. It just depends on if my bats get hot. But will that help, in understanding the teams that I'm playing? At this point in the game, there's so many. It doesn't matter the format you're playing, whether it's gold or silver or bronze. Like, most people are playing the same cards, and so that it's trying to figure out, if you play something drastically different, is that going to give you a major advantage? And so thinking about that and then testing it to see if it actually works, and sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So test and learn, I would say, is partly my strategy. But I don't want to sound arrogant, but I'm fairly good at observing and seeing what's happening and remembering those things. I'm complete crap remembering like names and directions and things like that, but looking at numbers and remembering numbers and understanding how they integrate together is one of my few strengths.
So who's better at silver, you or wait till next year?
Oh, he's definitely better. He's by far the best silver player that we have in this game. The only reason he doesn't win as much is because he's testing and he gets too nerdy on the data, probably, like you, instead of just running the best team and winning every single time. Yeah.
Analysis paralysis. There you go. So what is your favorite tournament discipline and why?
I probably like open caps the best, because you see the most, the most differences between teams in it. there's still some similarities, like everyone's going to play Cobb and stuff like that, but how they work pitchers and things, especially since they changed it and Pedro only goes 6 or 7 innings in those situations. People are putting more emphasis on pen in the last few months. I like caps in general, but I feel like diamond cap, most people have the same strategy at this point, unfortunately. Gold cap, maybe gold, is second. But I like the cap tournaments the best because I think there's always a lot of variability of who wins, no matter what tournament we're talking about. But I feel like caps makes me feel better too when I lose because I'm like, I could have built it a little bit differently here. But when you're running like the same team and you got knocked out in like 3 games in round 1 and the exact same team wins it all, in a 128, and you're like, they have the same team and I lost at 3 and they won it all. That sometimes frustrates you. So caps maybe makes me feel better when I lose.
Yeah, you mentioned that you're kind of pulling into the station here of closing out major time invest into Perfect Team 21. What are you still trying to accomplish before the game's out?
Yeah, again, there's a couple SEs I'd like to win. Like I'd love to get a Noodles. I'd love to win a Kane in gold. Kane is like the one good gold card I haven't won. So I might have to try and get second first tournament. I'm just kidding. So I think those are fun. So I've won a 128 for every format except for general bronze. I've won a bronze cap. I've never won bronze for 128. And so I haven't really spent any time in bronze yet, like in the last few months, but I might try and get back into bronze just with all the new cards because I think it would be fun to kind of dissect some of those and figure out what works. And it's like learning all over again with all those. So that might be fun to keep my mind occupied.
Well, come on in. The water's warm, buddy.
Yeah, outside of that, it's I've got a really good silver team, which helps fuel my one theme team, my like 80s 90s theme, and so I'm slowly trying to make that a little bit better. My Tigers team is pretty much done. I continue to win some packs there, mostly with gold, occasionally with bronze and iron, and I'm getting close to maybe being able to afford a Cobb or a Schoolboy Row, but those are the only 2 cards that I'm missing on my theme team. That team got super lucky, so I've been able to. I started off putting money into the game, right? And so, yeah, maybe a whale with the Fury. But I also wanted to experience it the other ways too. And so the Tigers team, I put in $100. I don't even think I put in $100. That team is way better than it should be for a $100 team. And that's just because I got really lucky. I packed like the second Griffey Jr. pre-face of the franchise and sold it for a ton. And that was before face of the franchise, so I could buy a lot of those Tigers super cheap, which I did, and that allowed me to pretty much finish that one off. And then the Nerf team is a free-to-play team, and so that one, what you see on that team is what I have. I really have absolutely nothing that's not on that team. I sell everything in order to afford the cards that I got there. So that has allowed me to experience it in all different, this game in all different ways. And so again, I can have that sympathy for the person that doesn't want to put any money into the game, and again, kick them irons and bronzes as cheap as I possibly can so they can build Yogi. But, also, I've had the luxury of, playing those top cards too and understanding that they're not worth the money.
Let's talk a little bit about your DLL experience. So you mentioned that early on in the game, a Golden Girl gift got you into a private Discord. And then at some point following that, I'm guessing Walnut approached you and brought you into DLL, or probably what didn't even have a name at the time, because I think you were one of the very first. Talk to us about how you got sucked into that and what your experience with DLL has been like.
Yeah, I think I just think I've always wanted to play with the best players, and I wanted to learn from them, right? And so you got to be in the same room, and a lot of those folks are in DLL. I mean, there's a lot of folks that aren't in DLL that are great players too, but at the time, some of the biggest spenders, which means they had a lot of data, were thinking about joining. And so to me, it was a no-brainer. I really hadn't put a lot of thought or value in perfect what is it, perfect league or whatever. I hadn't put a lot of thought in like winning it or wanting to win it. Now, when I was up there, I definitely wanted to win it, and I was super pissed when I did it. I think in this game, information is power, and Mac Jack and I, we had more information than anyone that first maybe 10 weeks of Perfect League, because either he was up there or I was up there, and we were working together, and we were pulling a ton of Perfect League data. And so I literally knew the best players to play every single week, and I just couldn't get it done. Obviously, it worked out for him, but I couldn't get it done. And I think, that doesn't necessarily bother me anymore. My wife wouldn't let me put up a plastic trophy anywhere in the house anyways. But I think just being around the top players and, having that camaraderie of trash talking and just picking on each other and seeing stupid things that I'll do and other people will do and be able to call them out and have fun and joke around, was attractive to me, because that was really the whole reason I was on Discord, and in many cases playing the game as much as I did. Again, the game is great. I think the base game is like the best part about it. I think Online League is the second best part. Perfect Team is fine too, but I think Perfect Team becomes a phenomenal game because of the community. The community is mostly kidneys and C-Fed notwithstanding. Mostly a bunch of 40-year-old dudes that, their wife is telling them to get away from them. They want to watch Hallmark movies, and you're trying to find something else to do because you fixed everything in the house because you've been locked in the house for 6 months. And so this has been it. So, yeah, I love, DLL. Hopefully, we get to do this again next year. I'd encourage other people to join a group. It doesn't have to be DLL. It could be anything, whether it's the Gold League or Diamond League or start your own. The biggest regret I probably have is I really wanted to start a theme team league and have like my Tigers with the Yankees team and some of the other teams. And, I got a few people to volunteer for that, but as soon as Face of the Franchise hit, people just abandoned that strategy, unfortunately. I was lucky that I pretty much had my team built by that point, but most people gave up on that. So that dream kind of died, but maybe early 2022 or 2021 for OTP 22, we can get some folks to raise their hand for that.
I think it sounds like a great idea, and I'd be happy to volunteer a Cubs themed team, which I don't think would stand up too well against Yankees themed team or some of the other franchises that have had some better profiles for this game in it. Although I guess the Cubs have had their fair share too. I think King Kelly is a Cubs card, and I think you've got some stuff to play with there, but we'll work that out. So one thing that I wanted to have you speak for a moment on, because I think a lot of people don't know what it is and really what you're referring to, is you mentioned just how much fun online leagues are. And so can you walk through, for someone who maybe hasn't heard of that or been made aware of that before, what the difference is between Perfect Team, the base offline league, or a base offline out of the park, and what an online league is?
Yeah, there's a lot of different types of online leagues. Like I play in a couple that have a bunch of made up players. So it's not as easy as just saying I want, John Smoltz and Greg Maddux as my pitchers, and I know they'll be good. And I play in a couple recalc leagues where they'll be good if you have those guys on your teams. But it works just like the base game, except like the base game, you control one team, but other live people control those teams too. You can go and they basically it depends on how the league is set up, but most leagues they simulate a week about 4 or 5 days a week. And so every day you submit your lineup for that week. You can make changes, and you can change all of the different sliders for that player, your global settings and things like that, just like Perfect Team. But it allows you to play with other folks and makes you go slower. That's what I really like about the game. Allows you to be a little bit more intentional. Perfect Team is great, but it's, it sims every 30 minutes. And, I'm, especially in my normal life, I get busy, and my job eventually will take me away from being able to micromanage, a Perfect Team. This doesn't hurt you in that regard, because at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock or noon every single day, you're the whoever owns the league will run that simulation, and it is what it is, right? And so it's kind of fun. It's just a different way to play. There's a couple different programs out there. Stat Plus is the biggest one that allows for hosting of the league, and you can have a Slack channel and things like that allow you to talk back and forth and do trades and all that with different folks. I'd really encourage you to do it. I think I don't go to the OOTP message board, but I believe a lot of folks find online leagues through OOTP message board. And so that's an avenue to check it out. It's worth it. You just, again, it requires very little time, maybe 30 minutes max a day. If you're not making any changes to your team, it doesn't require you to really do anything except make sure there's nobody injured in the last simulation you need to pull up and substitute out.
Yeah, definitely a ton of fun there. So if you haven't checked out an online league before, give it a go. And if you have any questions, head to the message board or find someone on the Discord. They'd be more than happy to help you.
And we'll call out Decimals. What's Angered Unicorn stream? He does a stream on his online league. So if you want to learn more about that, you can check out Angered Unicorn stream.
Awesome. So, Doc, you mentioned that Out of the Park is really best at the main game. You really love what they do there. You think that the core game itself is really it's the secret sauce. Now, specifically as it relates to Perfect Team, what are some areas that you'd like to see them approach differently or you think could be done better?
My day-to-day job is to, again, evaluate businesses, how they're implemented, how they could best serve their customers. And so I'm super critical. And I know that because that's what they pay me to do, right? In fact, I even early in the game cycle reached out, and spent some time and worked with the OOTP team off and on, mostly on the marketing side of things to try and help them just as goodwill. Never got anything from that, wouldn't want anything from that. I wanted to play just, like everybody else was playing. But, I think there's, they admit, right, that, it's in the early stages. It's technically a little over 2 years that the game has been around. And so there's a lot of bugs, there's a lot of folks, and we've got a really smart community that is constantly trying to figure out, the ways to manipulate and work things to their advantage. Everybody approaches things different, and early in the game cycle, I was really PO'd at people that were doing that. And over time, I honestly have gotten over that. And, I kind of blame OOTP. It's like I blame the business for not patching that, not fixing that, not being proactive to solve some of those things. So to answer your question, I think first off, baseball is incredibly random. And, I think that's acceptable. And in the base game, it's okay if John Smoltz loses to, a 2-star player, because that happens every once in a while. But when we're talking about Perfect Team, where it's the best of the best against best of the best, the randomness probably needs to be turned down a little bit. Far too often, the lesser team wins, and that probably isn't encouraging folks to invest. Like they could. I think OOTP would be a more successful financial venture if people understood that the cards that they were purchasing or the cards that they were, even saving up for on the auction house were going to win them more games. And, early in the cycle, all I remember people complaining about was that the pitchers sucked. Like that the pitchers were just so bad, and I guess the best pitchers back then were, Maddox.
Mm-hmm.
And who else? Maybe
Hubble.
Johnson, Hubble, right? But people hated Hubble, even though he was like the second best pitcher. People hated Maddox because they weren't consistent. They didn't play like the top guy. And so I think from and this is an algorithm perspective, I think that you need to turn down the randomness of the game. I know you did a segment on this. I didn't have a chance to watch it yet of what your things are. I mean, I think, getting some of the players that struggle to fit within the meta earlier in the game, I think is a good play. I think maybe you mentioned that. I heard you talk about that. I think any more things packable, obviously this is just my opinion, right? If I was building the content strategy, I definitely wouldn't have done it anywhere close to the way that it was laid out. I think because there's a lot of avenues for folks to cheat the system. I hate to say that, but it's true, like pass cards and, load up on tournaments and do some unique things. The way that the content strategy flowed allowed those folks to really benefit, because although OOTP probably does a decent job watching major transactions, this game wasn't really won by the Trispeakers of the world this year. It was won by building, which is sometimes those cheap cards, building those SEs. And so it's a whole lot easier to sneak through some transactions on golds and silvers and things like that, which I think we've seen happen. So I think from a regulation standpoint, it would be great if they can somehow control all the licenses a little bit better next year, but also think through how the cards play and how the content's being rolled out a little bit more thoughtful. My biggest pet peeve is getting cards that we already have. They're fairly similar, whether that's, some of the Tigers stuff, guys that we've seen, in the past couple months, or, I know the joke before I even understood the joke, like the Sizzler was the joke, right? We had like 2 Sizzlers within the first month, that I don't think it was bad to have 2 Sizzlers. I just don't think you need to push them so close together. Mm-hmm. So
here's a question for you. So what's the one thing that Out of the Park could do for Perfect Team 22 that would amp up your excitement to 11, that would really get you super jazzed to take on the new game and just be like a kid on Christmas morning dying to open up that new game and get to work?
Honestly, I think to me, the thing that's going to get me the most jazz is for them to show that they have a better understanding of their game. Not to say that they don't get it, but I don't think they get it as well as some of our best players, right? And so whether that's hiring folks like Quanta Condor or Your Kidneys, like putting folks that are smart like that on their staff so we have confidence that they'll understand the cards that are entered in the game. Or, I've heard this mentioned a bunch of times, like, let's make sure when they put 100 on the card, it actually is 100, and so maybe those live cards we don't see hundreds anymore for those live cards. So those new players understand, where they fit within the game system. I think, to me, I don't need them to add a player or anything like that. I want them to show me, as an active user, with a bunch of other active users, that they are as passionate and understand the game as well as I think they should.
Excellent. And how long do you see yourself continuing to play Perfect Team 21? I think you mentioned you'd be playing and allowing those prices to drop on the cards that you were looking for well into the next year.
Yeah, I don't think the game stops until they make me stop. I have a lot of perfect points I haven't spent. There's a lot of stuff that I could still sell. And so, yeah, I'll probably let it play out. Again, I'm not active. I don't manage my team day to day anymore. And you really have to for DLL to win. You have to do that for Perfect League to win. And so I don't have necessarily any awesome aspirations to win there. But I do enjoy like throwing stuff in the tournaments, and as I'm doing dual screens at night, watching a movie with my wife or something like that, seeing how my team does in the tournament. So I think that'll continue through next year. I don't think obviously I'll be as active because there won't be as much active participation, and I'll probably move over to 22, but yeah, we'll keep it alive. And so a lot of bronze and iron live cards. So feel free to, if you watch this interview in 6 months, you can probably still ping me and I'll sell you something.
So it's dream bracket time, Doc. You're in the DLL. Yeah. You get to paint with your own magical brush here. You're a wild card team, and you get to paint your way to the DLL championship. Who are you beating along the way, and in what order? Start with the team that you beat in the wild card round. So wild card, then divisional, then conference final, and then World Series. You get to pick the order, and you get to pick your victims.
Man, I don't know. There's so many good teams, you know. I would have loved to beat Buke, because then he could play-by-play it, you know, play-by-play the losses. But he's not in DLL. He retired for the year, but maybe next year he comes back. He would be up there. Maybe he's my first-round opponent.
Yeah, do him first, do Rufus second. A couple of guys that have not been nearly as active.
Yeah, Free Dave Brown deserves to lose, and so I put him in one of the first 2 rounds.
There you go.
And then I'd probably pick one of the better players, you know, someone that I know, you know, has given me a lot of time, like you and Mac Jack and API. Obviously, you guys do a phenomenal job. You know, there's a few others too. Obviously, Nosy Kyle doesn't. He's so quiet now, but you know, he's done a phenomenal job. And you know, Sydney. You know, I'm horrible with names. If you asked me to name all these teams, I probably wouldn't be able to name any of them, even though I stare at them all the time.
But you could pick out their logos. I'm sure you could pick their logos out of a lineup rather easily.
Yeah, honest BRRT, ET. I don't know how to say his name, but I mean, he's been one of the best players in this game all cycle, man. Just one of the best. I can't believe he hasn't won a perfect league. That's, to me, again, the game's broken because he hasn't won it. But he's kicked my butt so many times. To beat him would be a win, because I rarely beat him. But there's too many to name.
Sure.
Not Walnut, because he sucks. Everybody beats Walnut.
I mean, the most shocking thing from that last answer there is using Nosy Kyle and the word quiet in the same sentence. Like, I don't know that he's ever been called quiet before, so that's very very noteworthy. Last question for you before I let you go here, Doc. You get the opportunity to play catch with any player, living or dead, and I know you've already had plenty of brushes with celebrity. You know, you worked in sports, you've interacted with all sorts of people. Now, who would you pick to play that one game of catch with and sit down and maybe have a beer afterward and pick their brain?
You know the reason why OOTP is horrible sometimes? Because they don't have my favorite player in the game, Jose Canseco. What's the deal with that, right? So it would definitely be Jose Canseco. I'm getting old in my age. Maybe you can recommend some vitamins to take.
Sure, I'm sure he'll have a whole list of them.
No, when I was a kid, my 2 favorite players were Oral Hershiser as a pitcher and Jose Canseco as a batter. Again, that was back before we knew everything about Jose. But maybe Jose and Ozzy can come and we can, toss around the ball. I was going to say 3-way, but that would be inappropriate for Jose Canseco.
Well, there is nothing wrong with going with a Bash brother. So that concludes the interview. Doc, any parting thoughts here before I let you get out of here?
Thank you to everybody for making this year fun. I appreciate it.
And thank you, Doc, for your time today. And we're back. So that was Doc Fury. Just Doc. He told me in the beginning not to call him Doc Fury, and I'm still stuck on it. It just gets stuck in your head. You read Doc Fury on Discord for months on end, and you in your head just link them together when, to his point, doesn't make any sense. All right, let's open up a giveaway for tonight. We're going to do what we're calling the Doc giveaway, and I will start that now. The way to get into that giveaway is to type !ticket within the chat. Doing so will get you an entry. Everyone only gets one entry. If you were lucky enough to win the giveaway, the way to get those 10,000 perfect points, and we'll draw 3 winners, the way to get those points is to DM me on the Discord with your perfect team username with the correct capitalization. And then we'll typically have you those points by morning. I want to thank Doc for his time today. He was also very flexible on the scheduling, as I had some last minute changes, and he was more than happy to accommodate. So big thanks to Doc for that. I thought that it was interesting hearing yet another person talk about Perfect Team as kind of a timely escape unique to 2020. We've heard that refrain time and time again, and I think this year was unprecedented in a number of ways. And given that we've heard that so consistently, it makes you wonder about 2021. I don't doubt that anyone had a great time playing PT21. But, next year is likely to not be quite as unique as this year, and perhaps, depending on how things go, there won't be as much free time, and maybe people won't be seeking as actively escapes like this. So with PT22, will we lose any of that user base? Will we not have those folks that their genesis, their way in was really looking for that escape, or they're not looking for it anymore? That'll be something interesting to see. I think it's hard to anticipate exactly what the player level is going to be. I think this year's game was very successful in so many different ways, and a ton of fun for so many people to get engaged with, that I don't doubt that happy customers will come back. I just wonder what the overall impacts are going to be of a very different year, or what could be a very different year. I thought that Doc was also very candid. He shared his constructive criticism. He shared what he feels is, the core strengths of the game, including the base game itself, the online leagues that he's got 4 running right now, and the community itself within Perfect Team. An opinion that he and I share very strongly there. And I think that his passion about the online game and base game for people that really are just Perfect Team players was something important to hear. If that's something that you've never dabbled in or never given too much time, might be worth a look. It's definitely a way to keep things fresh. And for some of those online leagues, it's definitely a different way to put yourself into the general manager's chair and have a ton of fun doing it. All right, let's close down the giveaway here and draw a winner. Draw 3 winners. So last 5 seconds here, !ticket if you're in the chat and want a chance to win. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Giveaway is closed. So our first winner tonight is going to be DMP1. Second winner will be Johnny Shaka. And last but not least is Maverick RLS. So congrats to our winners. Again, DM me on Discord with your Perfect Team username with the correct capitalization, and then we'll get you those 10,000 perfect points as soon as we get a chance. So who are we going to have next week? Next week will be episode 12. It'll be airing 1 week from tonight, and our guest will be Rich Grisham, the Chief Operating Officer of Out of the Park Developments. Very, very excited to have him on. It's long overdue, and I know he's going to be an absolutely great guest, as he's always got a great attitude and a great spirit about him. And we'll see what types of insights we can glean. We know that PT22 is under wraps in so many different ways, but perhaps there'll be opportunities to learn a little bit about that, and then really reflect on what PT21 has been. Reflect on what a wild year this year really was, including explosive growth for Out of the Park and for Perfect Team. I think it'll be a great listen, so I hope that you guys will all be back to join us there. For anyone that is joining later, We did drop a new Discord link within the chat. So there's a new Discord for the DRC Nomads Twitch channel. If anyone is interested, let me go ahead and link it. Hopefully this link actually works. We'd love to have you in there. The spirit of that Discord will be talking about Perfect Team. It's going to be talking about these shows, coming up with new ideas for segments on shows that you guys would like to see. I've even included a little fantasy sports corner in there. If you're someone like me that can't get enough of it, I actually just put the bow on a fantasy football championship this past Sunday. Although I'm sure Walnut will be in the chat to downplay it here any moment. So disregard his comment whenever it does come in there. But something that's near and dear to my heart, and something that probably doesn't belong well on the Out of the Park Discord server, but something that I'm going to welcome into mine. What else? Thursday. So Kidneys and I will be back at the mic on Thursday for This Weekend Perfect Team. We'll go on right after Chris. We'll break down the new cards that he gives us and tell you guys what we think about them, where they play into the meta. And then we always cap off that show with a unique segment of sorts. I don't know that we've even decided what that segment's going to be, but we'll come up with something and we'll bring it to you guys. And in between the cards in the segment, we'll have OK Boomer, OK Zoomer, which if you've got a fresh 90s reference for me to quiz him on, hit up my DMs. I have not built that slide deck yet. So if you've got something to quiz him on, I'd love to have it. And I think that's going to do it. So thanks for joining tonight. Thanks for all the support. Let's call out those that did support. So Chuck, Crash, Luke, all with bits thrown into the chat. I really appreciate that. And then gifted subscriptions here from Chuck and Crash SF as well. And I noticed a couple people subscribing with Amazon Prime, which is entirely free to do if you do have Amazon Prime. And I appreciate all that support. And that's going to do it for us. So until Thursday, this is DRC signing off.